Jerusalem. They could stay down there for 70 years. God done told them that. But they said, no, Lord, let us go on home right now. There were some prophets that were false prophets. One of them was Hananiah, and he would say, God's about to bring you home. He's going to send you back to the promised land in 2 years. In 2 years. And here it was that Jeremiah had to get up and preach and said, no, that's not what God says. You know, in verse 7 of chapter 29, this is not in your outline, but he says, seek the prosperity of the city for which I carried you. Pray for that city, because that's where I put you. Pray for it. You're asking God to do something that He doesn't want. That's not God's plan, but you ask God to bless you in the midst of your circumstances. Amen. Sometimes we're like the 3 Hebrew children. We're in the fiery furnace, and we want God to blow out the fire. And He can if He wants to. But sometimes God might be using the fire to temper our lives. And if God doesn't blow out the fire, He'll get right in the middle of the fire and walk hand in hand with you. And God will be with you all the way. Don't start acting like God doesn't love you when He doesn't answer your prayer in a way that we think He ought to. Sometimes you get torn up, and I get torn up about that. God, I prayed and prayed and prayed. Where are you at? And God said, I'm right here in the fire. Where are you at? Where are you at? God may not take you out of the furnace, but He'll walk with you in the furnace. He might not take you out of the situation, but He'll give you hope in the midst of it. And then in Jonah chapter 3, verses 3 through 5, I want you to look at this. God had a plan for Jonah all the time. And He said Jonah obeyed the word of the Lord. He followed God's plan. And he went to Nineveh. Now Nineveh was a very large city. It took 3 days to go through it. Now sometimes God's plan is not easy. But God delivered Jonah because He had a plan for him. And it wasn't a plan that Jonah was happy about. He didn't like those Ninevites. But God led him to go and preach to them. And Jonah went and preached and obeyed the Lord. And a whole city was saved that day because Jonah finally obeyed the Lord. Now, I want you to get this. Somebody's future may depend on your obedience to the Lord, to God. Somebody's future, somebody's eternal destiny. Now, to make that sound as great, and it is great, might depend on whether you will obey the Lord or not. Are you walking where God wants you to walk? Are you being obedient to the Lord? Are you following God's plan for your life? I want to get a song ready. You know, as I was working on the message, I thought about the story of Simon Peter. You've heard me share this story before in different contexts, but I remember the story about Simon Peter. I think it's in Luke 5, where Jesus came to him and he was been fishing all night and hadn't caught anything. And they fished with nets back then. He took his nets out of the water, which was a big job, and he cleaned those nets, got all the grass and the dirt and the rocks and the muck out of them, and had them folded up, put them away. And then Jesus comes on the scene, and to beat it all, Jesus said, Peter, I want you to get back up there on your boat. I want you to let down your nets, because you're going to have a big catch of fish. Lord, I fished all night. I'm a fisherman, you know. Now, Jesus was a carpenter. Peter was a fisherman. Lord, you're telling me about my business. I know my business, but Lord, I fished all night and hadn't caught a thing. But because you told me to do it, I'll obey. Now, the Bible said they caught so many fish that their nets began to break. More than they ever. You know, there were people that night that had a fish dinner that might have been hungry if it hadn't been for Peter obeying the Lord. Even under silly circumstances, it seems. God knows best. You believe that? God knows that. God's plan is always better than my plan. And we need to be willing to say, Lord, whatever your will is for my life. God might be moving some of you to have a closer walk with Him, to recommit yourself, or to ask the Lord to help you with a need in your life this year, maybe that you've had like a prayer request, a burden that He's not answered this past year, whatever it is, maybe to God to show you His will for your life. want you to be obedient to the Lord today as we give this invitation. And I want you to allow the Lord to speak to your heart on this first day, or first Sunday in January 2019. Father, right now, in Jesus' name, move upon our hearts. If there are some decisions we need to make today as we begin this year, let us make them. Lord, we're not here to make resolutions. We're here to make commitments. And if there's some commitments to make to you this year about ourselves, about our family, about our devotional life, about our witnessing, about our service, God, give us the strength to publicly say, Lord, I need you and I'm willing to do what you want me to do. I'm ready to go with my Nineveh if that's where you're leading me. In Jesus' name, amen. I want you to stand. And if you